In this presentation, we will record the completion of a job and the invoicing of that job within QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Desktop. Here we are in our practice problem 4 file. We currently have the open windows open. You can open the open windows by going to the view drop down up top and selecting the open windows list. Let's take a look first at our Excel sheet so we can see what our objective is. We go to our Excel sheet. We're currently on the tab 1.31. We're going to be here in G11. This is going to be the transaction we are thinking of. We're going to say that the job is completed. Then we're going to bill that job. Now, the transaction that's going to be related to the billing of the job will be related to job number 14. If we go over to job number 14, we currently see that we have the 191, 140 in there. So that means that that's going to be our cost. I'm going to mark it up by 30% as we've done in the prior problem. So 191, 140 times 0.3 plus, that's going to be the markup. The 191, 140 gives us the 248, 482. That's what we're going to charge for it. Now, when we invoice then, all we need to do then for this system, because we've already been recording the costs to cost of goods sold as we go, is to simply record the first half of a transaction that we might see in a merchandising company, or the same thing we might see in a service company, which would be when we invoice, we're going to debit the accounts receivable, increasing the receivable that is owed to us, and credit sales, increasing sales. So we've increased the sales here. And then we got the sales minus the cost of goods sold. Obviously, this cost of goods sold includes not just 14, but 15 and 16. And so notice on a completed contract kind of thing, or, until the job was done, kind of a normal accrual basis, these amounts would be in the work in process. But also note that we could do process billing during this, during the job, depending on how long the job is. So we could do an adjusting entry if we wanted to account for that, which we'll think about at the end here. But note, at this point, we don't need to do the other side of the journal entry that we would do if we were doing like an inventory type of journal entry. If we had it in finished goods, in other words, we would have to then close out or close out the finished goods and then record the related cost of goods sold. The beauty of this system is we don't have to deal with that capitalization process. It's a timing difference than the other system, which would be more like an accrual kind of system. And therefore, we would have to adjust for that at the end of the time period if we needed to. But now, all we need to do is record this item. And there's nothing that needs to be done to the jobs, because again, the job cost sheet is already supporting the cost of goods sold number here. So let's record that into QuickBooks. If we go into QuickBooks, then all we're going to do is create the invoice. Now, the objective when we do the invoice then is to pull these numbers into the invoice in some way. So if I go into the invoice, for example, and if I say that I want job number 14, I'm going to minimize this screen, job number 14, and tab, it's going to give us these billable items. Now, what we don't have, as we had in the prior presentations, is the pulling over from the estimate, because we didn't make an estimate here. So that's one difference. If you made an estimate outside of QuickBooks, then you have the same decision. Do you want to stick to the estimate and just bill on the estimate? Or do you want to basically go to those actual costs and have some markup on the actual costs? This would be basically pulling in the actual costs. So if I was to say, okay, then go over to the items, which are 16 items here. If I was to select all of them and then say, okay, then we have this item up top that says it's a reimbursable group item. And then we have all these items here. Now, notice this adds up to the 144,440, does not match what's here, it should be 191, 140. So why doesn't it? Because we entered those beginning balances with a journal entry, you'll recall, and so if I go back, for example, to the company and financial, and we go down to make journal entries, and we made two journal entries, right? One we made for the depreciation. So that's not included because I have no job field in the journal entry. And then if I go back again, the other was for the beginning balances. Again, there's a class field, but not the job field. So that's what the difference is. We can shore that up easily by basically closing this back out and simply selecting the proper accounts in order to do that. And we could shore that up. The other problem, however, if I go back to our reports up top, if I go to the reports drop down, if I go then to the profit and loss by class report, And I'm going to run this from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. The other problem with this report is it'll show a reimbursement, you'll see. And what I really want to see is the income tab. So in other words, if I run this report and I see down here, it should be at the cost of the job should be, and let's run it for 2019. I want to get the full length of the job. So 2019, because this was open prior year too. So all of the job costs related to this job should add up to the 191,140, the 191,140 here. Now I could shore this up and go back to our invoice here and simply add up the missing amounts. But what could also happen is this job cost sheet, instead of the invoice being recorded as an income account up here, it'll record it as a reimbursement of these items. And that's not what I want it to do. I don't want it recorded as a reimbursement. I want to record it as income. So for that reason, I wouldn't really, for this system, I wouldn't actually use these. And that means you don't need to allocate to the jobs really all the way around. But I wanted to kind of demonstrate that and show that. So what you can do then is I'm basically just going to close this out. I'm going to close this item out. I'm not going to save it. And then what I'm going to do is just create an invoice. And I think it's just easier to line it up to job number 14 and create the invoice from basically job number 14 here. So I'm gonna try to put these screens side by side. So I'm gonna minimize this screen. I'll actually remove the home page, and then I'll make this screen be on the side window, and pull that down. And then I'm gonna make the invoice. So I'm gonna go to the customers, and I'm gonna create an invoice here, and then I'm gonna pull this on the other side of the screen so that we could see the invoice. Let's put this over here, actually, and then I'll pull this to this side. It's easier if you have two screens, which you can set up as well. And then this one needs all that space, so I'm going to put this right there. If you have two windows, note obviously you can go to the View tab, and you could switch to the dual monitor, switch to multi-monitor. But I want to make it big enough so everybody can see it here. So we're going to be in job number 14, and then you could basically create items. Now you don't need to create the items. You can add these to just the description. So right, you can say submit and just add this over here. But I'm going to create an item for them and just a normal type of item. I'm not going to create an item that's basically double-sided. All we're doing here is the billable items. So I would go through here and say we need the cement render, and I'm going to add that. I'm going to add it as a service item, and it's going to be the cement render. I'm just going to copy that and put it here, and then I'm going to say it's going to be going to an income account, which we haven't set up yet. I'm going to call it income. So income, and then we're going to set up. And there we have it. And so then I'm going to say, okay. And obviously, once you have all these set up, then it'll be easier to just take this information from our job sheet and put it in here. So I'm going to say the submit is going to be the 30, not the quantity. I'm going to put it over here. It's going to be the 30,000. And then the class we want is going to be 14, job number 14. And then I'm going to say the ceramic tile. That's all I'm going to put. I won't put the whole name here just for time's sake. And we'll say that's the ceramic tile. And this is going to be an income account. And I'm going to say okay. And so there is that. This is going to be for the amount of 8,000 for job number 14. And then the next one is going to be dropped ceiling. C-E-A-L-I-N-G, hopefully spelled right. Service item, I'm going to copy that, put it in the description. Income about is income. Going to save and close. And I spelled it wrong, but that's okay. I'm going to keep it now just to push forward. It's going to be 5,000. Job number 14. And then we're going to put in the next one, which is going to be, I'm just going to call it flooring, tab, flooring, service item, copy, description, income account, okay. And did I spell that wrong? I'm going to just close that. And then I'm going to say that that's going to be for the 15,000. and that's going to be job number 14. So 14 once again, and then 14, and then we're going to pick up the next one, which is marble, and tab, set up, service item, copy that, and paste it there, income account, and OK. And that's going to be for the amount of the 6,000. And job number 14. Next item is the materials. Materials other. Add that, service item, copy that, paste it in the description. Income is the other account, and enter. That's going to be for the amount of 20,000. Job number 14. Next item we have is paint. I'm just going to call it paint. Tab, OK. Service item, copy that, put it in the description, paste that, income account, and enter. And we're going to say that is for 2,000. Next item, and that's job number 14, is going to be the plaster. Plaster, tab. We're going to say it's a service item. Going to copy that. Going to paste it in the description, income account, and enter. Going to say tab, plaster for the 3005, job number 14. And the next one is going to be, that was the plaster. I'm on the staff. Staff, tab, and copy. Tab, 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 paste, and income account, tab, enter. We're going to say that's going to be for this is the staff 2,500, tab, and that's going to be job number 14, job 14. And then we're going to say the next one is going to be the wall. I'm going to say wall covering, tab, service item, copy, tab, 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 paste, tab, tab, income, tab, enter. And that's going to be for the 10,000, job 14, tab, tab. And then we're going to say we got the wood finishing, tab, OK. Service, copy, tab, 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 paste, tab, tab, income account, tab, enter. And that's going to be for 12,000. And that's going to be job number 14. So that adds up to the 144. Now I'm going to add the direct labor. So the direct labor, actually let's add the overhead first, just to, because that has more items to it. So the overhead, I'm going to put in depreciation, equipment, tab, okay. Service, tab, oh, I should have copied it. I'm going to copy it. Copy, tab, 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 paste, tab, tab, income account, tab, enter. And then we're going to say that that is going to be for the amount of 5,700. Job number 14, tab, tab. Then we have the indirect labor, tab, enter, tab. I'm going to pull this down so we can see it. Tab, tab, tab. And let's copy. I messed up my whole flow here. And that's going to be an income account. Tab, enter. So there we have that. That's going to be for the labor 2660, job number 14, tab, tab. Then we're going to say the indirect materials, tab, okay. Service item, copy, tab, 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 paste, tab, tab, income, tab, enter, tab, tab. And then we're going to say this was for 5,007, tab 14, job, tab, tab. And then we're going to say we have the overhead other. This is the one they're going to ask us about. What does other mean on the invoice, right? Tab. We're going to copy that, tab, 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 paste it in the description. Income account, income, tab, enter. Then we're going to put that on the books for the 3,800, tab number 14. That's what the job we want. Now we're in rent equipment, tab, yes, enter, tab, tab. Well, I should copy that. I'm going to copy that, tab, 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 paste, tab, tab, income, tab, and okay. So then we're going to say tab, tab, and that's going to be for the equipment of 3.8, job number 14. And then we get to go to utilities. Utilities, tab, yes, tab, copy, tab, 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 paste, tab, tab, income, tab, enter. Tab, tab, that's going to be the 2280, job number 14. And there we have it. So now we're at the 137,990. So 137,940. And we need to take that amount minus the 191,140. And that should be, of course, the labor, hopefully. So the direct labor. And it's not, because I messed up the overhead other. So this amount here, an overhead other, I'm going to fix that. That should be the 9,000. Obviously, we have a lot of items here, so you're going to want to make sure you got this tied out correctly. And so we got the 191,140 minus the 143,140. That means 48. Does that tie out to the missing? Yes. So now we're going to put in the missing item, which is the direct labor. So now we're going to say direct labor item, yes, service, copy, tab, 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 paste, tab, tab, income, tab, enter. And that's going to be for the amount of our 48,000. Job number 14. So note you have a very detailed invoice here. It takes a lot of time to put it together, but after you do this one time, then all of these items will be set up, and they're just normal items. They're service items. So what's the invoice going to do? It's going to be debiting the accounts receivable. That's what an invoice does. The other side's going to be going to the income account we set up. Now this is going to be for job number 14, which I could put in the class here. The date is correct. Now we just need to add our markup. So obviously, again, the strategy, of course, here is to just tie it out exactly to the job report, right? So here's our job report. We're tying out to what's on the job report. So whether we use the billable time or not, we pretty much, if we want to have all this categorization into the invoice, which we don't need to, we could just say, hey, here's direct materials, here's direct labor and overhead. We could sum it up this way and just have 3 items. Say, hey, that's the direct material, that's the direct labor and overhead. We don't need to put all the plaster and this and that and whatnot. But if you want to include that detail, some people might like to see all the detail and see exactly what the line items are. For example, if someone takes this invoice, like I say, what are they going to question here? What is this overhead other 9,000, right? They're going to want to know that. So sometimes for a lot of people, it might be worthwhile to allocate this out. The questions are always going to be in usually the items that are in overhead, because you had to allocate them in some way, and people are going to question your allocation. So you want to, be able to explain that. Now we're going to do the markup, which is 30%. So I'm going to mark it up 30%. So now we're going to just call another item mark up and set that up. It's going to be a service item, and we might want to put this in the description too. So I'll put that in the description, and that's going to be other side to an income account. And we're going to mark it up 30%, which is the 191,140 times 0.3. And there's our markup. So now we're at the 248,482, and that's the same amount we have here that we put on our Excel sheet. So that's the way you can think about, creating the invoice for it. And now let's record it, see what happens. If I was to say save and close and say yes, customer job field cannot be left blank. I'm going to say we need the customer. That's important. That's going to be job number 14. So I'm going to say I don't need that. And then we're going to tab through here. Okay, so everything looks good. All right. I thought that might clear it out. That wouldn't have been good. So now we're going to say save and close and yes. And I'm going to keep that or just close that out. Spelling problem. Okay, so there we have it. So now we've recorded that. And if we look at our job report then, in job 14, we see the income here. Now note, again, I'm running the report from 2019 to 2020, so I see the full job now that was open across the cutoff or the end of the year time period. We have the 248,482. That's going to be the income that we compare basically to the expenses for that job. And we have the 57,342. That's going to be, the difference between the two. If we look at the current time period, by 010119 to 12 or 010120 to 1231. Then, of course, the only expenses we show are those incurred in the current time period. So you want to be able to differentiate between the two. I want to look at the full job that might go across the cutoff date, or do I want to look at the amount that was incurred in the current time period? Now, the next thing we want to do is indicate that this job has been closed. So if we could do that by going to the lists dropdown, and we can go to the classes. And so I can move this to closed class now. Now, I might want to do the same thing. I might want to indicate the year that it was closed. I might want another class in here and say, hey, I want to show the ones that were closed, that closed in the current year. And that way, I can basically see the ones that were open and have that crossover between the 2 years, between last year and this year. So I might even add another category. I might say I want to add a new class, and I could say closed in the current year, right? If it was closed in the current year as opposed to closed prior year, right? And then I could say that there it is and say okay. And then I'm going to move this to that class. So I'm going to right click on job number 14. I'm going to edit the class, and I'm going to say that it's going to be a subcategory not of open, but the one that was closed in the current year, and then say okay. And then if I go back to the profit and loss report, then I can use the filtering options within this report, which are nice, right? Now I've got the ones that were closed in the current years. If there were anything closed in the prior year, then I could see those items that were already closed in the prior year, and they might not have any activity given the date range that we run anyways, right? So we want to see, and I can basically minimize those. So we got the ones that were closed in the current year and the ones that are open. Then at the end of the year, at the end of 2020, I would move this job number 14 to closed, right? It was closed. It wasn't open. It wasn't open at all in the current year. So that's how you can kind of maneuver that. And the reason you'd want to do that then is because if I run this from 2019 to see all the open reports, I want to see the ones that were open in 2020 at all, and I want to see all the data for them. I want to see everything that was incurred for that time period, and this will allow us to show that. And then the ones that were not open at all in the current time periods will be in a third closed category, and that'll allow us to do our figuration of the items. And we could say, well, what was open during the time period, which again, our goal is to say 2019 to 12/31/19, and that'll give us our costs for the beginning of the period. For the jobs that were closed, these jobs were closed in 2020, but they were still open at the end of the prior time period, and we can basically get those amounts and pull them in, which is going to be that 83,000, which once again helps us with our reconciliation over here. So we want that number for the reconciliation in case at the end of the year we want to reconcile to whatever we need to do for a completed contract, accrual basis, percentage of completion. So we need to just be able to reconcile. That's kind of our objective, and we need to do that no matter what system we're using. We want to be able to reconcile that out. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a few other expenses just to see what it would look like if we have expenses basically other than the cost of goods sold, selling and admin type of expenses.